My name's Allan Andreoni and I'm from Port Huron, Michigan, which is about an hour north of Detroit. The first real estate transaction that I did using Joe's techniques was the for rent method. And I had been doing something similar but taking possession of the property. And after reading some of Joe's stuff, I did the same transaction without having to take possession, which was a huge benefit because I was able to get the lease option fee, which is cash money, up front without having to actually hold the real estate. And so that was a huge benefit. Once I saw that, I realized the true value in doing that technique. The first deal that I did took me approximately between a week and 2 weeks. I had been doing something that was similar to that, and it's like if you read something over and over again, the last time you read it a little different or whatever happens and something clicks. And so I had already been doing something similar to that, but probably between a week and 2 weeks I did my first deal. It was not hard work at all. I think maybe I had a couple of hours. And if I remember correctly, it's been some time ago, but I think I made $2,000 on that deal. Well, I found out about Joe, browsing the web like a lot of other folks. And what made me get involved with him and some of the stuff that he's teaching is I've looked at a lot of different programs, bought a lot of different programs. You try to be a student of the business. And I was, and it seemed that all of the things that I had been looking at didn't take the process from A all the way to Z. There were a lot of gray areas. And so why I decided to go with Joe's stuff is that he was pretty specific about the steps that you had to take in order to get from the first point to the last point where you're actually putting money in your pocket. And I think more than anything else, that's why I decided to go with him and his stuff. And the other thing also was that he was very generous with his information. So you could get things from Joe without buying anything. And then if you bought something from him, you would get that and then a wealth of information on the back end of it. Plus, he was a hands-on resource. So it wasn't as if you had questions, you were dialing an 800 number and getting, a voice message. You actually had access to people, and not only Joe, but students that have been in his mentor program. So there's a wealth of information, and those things, led me to continually buying his stuff and taking my business, step by step higher. Boy, that's a broad category. There's two things. One would be using the for rent method, and that was that I actually sold the same house twice within a year, and the total was $17,000. So all of the people that you talk to that are worried about what happens if a tenant buyer moves out, it's actually, in a lot of cases, it can be a good thing. And that's what happened is we put a tenant buyer in a house doing the for rent method, and they moved out within 6 months after paying $10,000 down. Doesn't happen very often. And we were able to put somebody else in there for the seller, and they brought in $7,000. So in a year's time on the same house, we made $17,000. So that's the for rent method. The other side of the best deal that we ever did was on a property where we purchased that for our own portfolio, and the lead came in through the auto marketer, and it was a gentleman from Brazil who worked for Ford Motor Company, and he was transferred to Brazil. So he moved his family to Brazil and had a portfolio of real estate local to where I live in Port Huron. So he had a triplex that he had completely resided, brand new roof, new windows, and a nice place. And we purchased that property for $6,800. You know, so $6,800, we bought a triplex that was in almost mint condition with 3 different families in there that are still in there today. So that's a pretty good deal. I would have never found that gentleman had it not been for the auto marketer. I have started automating my business, been automating for a long time, and I'm not as fast in my automation as Joe has been in updating the entire process. So there's a lag factor there. I'm a little bit behind him as far as what I'm doing, but you know, every year I try to automate a little bit more, and I've just introduced another step into my business having to do with automation, and it seems to be working really, really good. And I understand in talking to Joe recently that he's about to introduce some new cutting edge stuff, and I'm really excited, you know, to hear what he has, because it sounds like it's absolutely fantastic. And as good as the other stuff has been, this sounds like it's going to be the cherry on top. With the automation, the auto marketer, you know, we've been doing a lot of the for rent method, and so what we've been doing is trying to look and see where we can go with that thing. And it seems like every time I answer that question, another opportunity comes out of it. And so the techniques that we're doing are the for rent method, and then we're also able to tie property up for our own portfolio, you know, subject to, we've been finding land contracts where we're doing, you know, zero interest stuff, no money down. So there's a lot of different things that we've been doing. We're using any technique we can possibly use that he teaches based on the information that comes at us. So we're able to take that information and basically determine which of the things that we would want to do from the same piece of information. So you can take one piece of information and I guess in a nutshell, I've always heard him say that you can make an offer 100% of the time on anything that comes through, and that's exactly what we've been able to do. When people come through, we can make an offer 100% of the time within 24 hours, and that's pretty valuable. Well, we've been averaging, doing the for rent method, you know, that's again kind of a two-part question. So the amount of money that we're making with the for rent method, we've been averaging 3 or 4 deals a month, and I try to stay there. I'd like to double that. We get anywhere from 2,000 to we've gotten as high as this last year in 2013, you know, as high as 7,000 in a transaction. So, you know, do the math there. But the other end of that is that one of the things that the goals that we established in 2013 was to buy one property a month, and we ended up purchasing 10. And so that's a whole other spectrum of income. You know, that's long-term wealth, and we're able to make those purchases with such a low amount of money that our expectation of 2013 was just blown out of the water as far as what we purchased to hold ourselves and where it's going to take us income-wise. 5 of those properties were bought out of our Roth IRA, which is another thing that Joe teaches. Goals as a real estate investor are, you know, sky's the limit, but for me, where I would like to see this thing go is that I want to get to a certain level of income with as little as work as humanly possible. And So we're going to try to work more and more at outsourcing the things that either I don't want to do or I'm not good at, and grow our income, in spite of those things, so or because of those things. So I'd like to, in this next year, double the amount of business that I did in 2013 with half the effort. If we can do that in 2014, that would be a next level where we would take our real estate investing business. And then, of course, 2015 will be something completely different. So as long as we keep progressing, from year to year, we'll set a new bar and then hopefully hit that and just keep going. The impact that real estate investing has had on lifestyle, family and spouse, that's, it has been incredible. For instance, an example would be this last year, in spite of the amount of business that we did, and it didn't take that much to do what we did in 2013, and it's a good thing because I was in Italy for 3 weeks, and then took another 10 days and went to Southern Illinois with friends, and spent some time there, and then on top of that, took some more time to be with our family. So the amount of family time that I've been able to spend and still have the level of income to do those things, and that's been the big issue in years past, is that a lot of folks either have the time. If they have the time, they do not have the money. So the trick is merging those two things, and when you are able to have both, that creates a lifestyle that a lot of people are looking for. And so same with my wife, we don't worry about paying the bills like we had in past years, and if we want to do something, we're able to just go and do it, whether it's time or money or both. Those things are available now, so it's made a huge impact on our life. I do this full time now, and I had a discussion with my sister the other day. She works for Bank of America, and she was telling me about her day and all of the politics involved, and the conversation lasted roughly 35 to 40 seconds before I attempted to change the subject because I was starting to get, a pit in my stomach. And so I remember I came from a corporate atmosphere, and I remember what it was like due to the conversation with my sister. And I'm thankful every single day that I'm a real estate investor and don't have an actual real job where I had to work, or do physical work or anything like that. I think I'm going to stick with what I'm doing. What I'm planning to do to build my business is continue to automate, and those things that I either won't choose to automate, because I like them, I want to get better at them. I'm not sure what that'll be, because if I can automate everything, I would, and just sit back, and watch it all unfold before me. But if I can't do that, I'll just get better at those things, that need work. And then I want to grow my business to a point where I have the income that I want, which I'm not there yet, but the income that I want, which is going to provide the flexibility for me to do just about anything that I want, in my life with my family, go places, do things where money's not really an object. And then, how big I want to build it is not big, not so big to where I've basically got myself into a job again. I don't want to do a huge amount of managing. I want to get to a point where we can do whatever we want when we want to do that, And if growing the business so big interferes with that, I'll stop somewhere short of that. I would say absolutely pursue it. And I would also say that there's a lot of different types of investing out there. I've done many of them. And by far the stuff that I've seen Joe teach and the information that I've read is some of the best that's out there. And one of the reasons why it's the best is that he tries to set somebody up, whether you're a beginner in the business or you've been in the business a while. He has safeguarded investing to the point where if you follow his stuff and do what he teaches, there's less chance of getting yourself in situations that can create pain for an investor. Whereas other stuff that I've seen doesn't really go to the great lengths that he has to point those roadblocks, hurdles, landmines out. I would just like to say, for those folks out there that are contemplating whether or not they want to get into this business, whether it's full-time or part-time, I've seen nothing else out there that is as lucrative. You have to put the time in, and you have to put the work in. Even if it's not a lot of work, you have to be consistent at it. But if you do that, there's nothing out there that rewards you as well, time-wise and also financially. And if you're just getting started, stick to what Joe's been teaching. And if you have questions, there's a wealth of information, not only in the stuff that he teaches, but in the people that are around the mentor program and Joe himself. And so if you have any questions, you're always going to find somebody to give you an answer. And if you keep going along that path, great things will happen.